All right, folks, so we are going to do an assembly demo in OnShape, and what we're trying to accomplish is we want to make an assembly of all of our puzzle cube pieces. So I'm going to load up my workspace, and this is what our finished product should look like. And as you see, when you're all finished, you should be able to see the 5 different pieces that are all your puzzle cube pieces assembled in an appropriate way that it shows all of them and they are in a perfect cube. When you do your snip or your screenshot, make sure that you include your name up here and that it shows your puzzle cube assembled in a view that shows all of the pieces. So it has to be an isometric view. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same angle that I'm showing right now, but you should be able to see all of the pieces. So I'm going to go back into my landing page here and I'm going to start a new assembly. So I'm going to go into my puzzle cube folder, and I made one demonstration part right here for no other purpose other than to show you guys some things, because after I put some of these in my initial assembly, you can't go back and redo some of the things that you had to set up. So I'm going to you can just start this from any of your parts. So I originally started from part 1 green, which is why that's what my assembly is called. So I'm going to go into my demonstration piece here. Once you are into your your model screen here, you can see down at the bottom there should be an assembly file already set up there that you can just simply open that up. If this doesn't show up here, you can hit this plus button and you can add an assembly from here, but it should already be set up that you don't need to. One other thing that I haven't shown in any of my previous demos, it doesn't really hurt anything to leave them, but after you're done with your part, a lot of people probably want to get rid of these planes. If you come over here into your project browser, you can see that when I hover over these work planes here, there's an eyeball, and if I click on the eyeball, it will hide that plane. So I'm going to do that to all 3 of my work planes. I'm also going to do it to the origin so that the only thing that is in my workspace is my part. All right, so now I'm ready to start the assembly. All right, once you have the assembly open here, the first thing you're going to do is come up here and you're going to hit Insert. And whatever part you're currently working on should show up here automatically. If that's not what you want to start with, you can click on Other Documents and you can navigate through Recently Opened, which should have everything that you've been working on somewhat recently. Or you can just click on My OnShape and navigate as you normally would through the files that you've created. But I'm going to start with my current document, which is this part 1, and when I click on this, it should just drop it right into place. Okay, and I just click that into place. After you are finished putting your part in an assembly, if you have another one to put in of the same piece, you can click on it again and drop another one. And once you have all of those parts put in, I would suggest that you hit the check mark. Don't go in and start dropping other pieces in because you can get yourself into trouble. I would suggest you hit the check mark, and then if by accident you added too many of a particular piece, like I did right here, I'm going to click on that piece and hit the delete key on my keyboard to get rid of it. To bring in my other pieces then, I'm going to hit Insert again, and I'm going to go to Other Documents, and I'm going to do Recently Opened, and then I'm going to scroll and find my parts. And I'm going to start with part 1 green. And you can see we get a little kind of a warning that shows up here. Basically, there's been changes to the part since it created a part for the assembly. And it seems that not all of the parts are ready to go in an assembly right when you complete them. So when you get this screen right here, just create a version or hit this button that says Create a Version in whatever part it is. And you can rename this if you want. I always just let it go with the default name and I hit Create. And once it does that, you don't have to wait for the view to generate, but you certainly can. You're just going to click on part 1 and you should be able to then drop that into your workspace here. and I'm going to hit the green check mark. Now, as far as assembling goes, this piece isn't actually used for anything. I just had it for the demo. So I'm going to delete this. And I'm going to bring in another piece now. So I'm going to go to Other Documents, Recently Opened, and I'm going to go to Part 3. And the reason that I'm bringing Part 3 in next is simply because I know how these two pieces need to go together without looking at anything else. So it's just a real quick way for me to show how some of the assembly works. So now that I have these two pieces in, and obviously you could bring all 5 pieces in, I would suggest that you do one piece and then a second piece and assemble those before you bring in the next piece, but that is totally up to you. I think if you put all 5 pieces in there, it has potential to be a little bit more confusing. Make sure that you are okay with the view controls before you start this. So just a reminder, as far as moving your workspace around, if you right-click and hold and then drag your mouse, you can rotate. That's going to be handy for while you're doing assembly. And what I'm going to try to do to start is I want to attach this piece right here, this surface, to this surface right here. So to do that, up here are our different ways that we can assemble pieces together. And for the puzzle cube, I'm not saying this is the only way you can do it, but planar mate is what has worked the best for me so far. I will admit that assembly in OnShape I don't think works quite as nicely as it does in Inventor, but it does work. Okay, so I'm going to use this planar mate button, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to click on this surface, and then I'm going to click on the surface that I want to mate it to, which is this one. Okay, and you can see that right now they are showing that they're kind of parallel, or as we would have called it in Inventor, flush. I want to flip that piece around, so I'm going to hit this button to flip the primary axis, and that is what I want, so I'm going to hit the check mark. Okay, and somehow I got 2 of these pieces in here, so I'm going to delete one of them. All right, so now I'm going to go back into the planar mate button, and I'm going to choose some more surfaces. In this case, I want to make some surfaces flush together, so I want to make this surface flush with this one next. So I'm going to click on this surface, and then I'm going to click on this surface. And that doesn't look exactly how I want it to, but I can see those 2 surfaces are flush like I want, so I'm going to hit the check mark, and you can see that it kind of fixed itself. One of the things that I like the least about assembling an OnShape is it appears as though your preview is not accurate all the time. So you can see that after I clicked the check mark, it was correct, but the preview it was showing me was not. So don't always assume that if you click 2 surfaces and they're not showing exactly right, don't assume that they're actually wrong, because they could still be right. So now I'm going to rotate over here, and I want to make these 2 surfaces flush. So I'm going to click one surface, and then this surface. And again, they kind of meshed them together. When I hit the green check mark, it should end up the way I want it. So that is actually how I want these 2 pieces to be mated together. So that is how you start assembly for your puzzle cube. You will continue to then insert other pieces and follow the same procedure as what I just showed here for these 2.